Hey, everybody. Jimmy with the Triple C Collective. And with me for part three of our Oscar series is.
Becky.
Hey, Becky.
Hi.
Um, so we are back for round three. And I got to say, I was really disappointed in myself. I came into watching the Oscars about 2 hours late because I had work. Because I had started a new job in January and I didn't take any time off or whatever for it like I should have. So I came in a little late. So one of the things we wanted to talk about though that I first said to you that I was like, hey, I want to talk about the Oscars, but one thing I do want to talk about on Oscar night is how people are dressed, hairstyle, whatever, things like that. So let's dive into that. I'll let you take over from here. You start driving.
Yeah, so I actually missed a half hour of the red carpet because they did it much earlier this year because they started the show at 7 this year, which I think in previous years it had started at 8. So I missed a half hour of the red carpet, but I did my due diligence, and I made sure to catch up on everything that everyone was wearing. I had I have a list of my favorite best dress, and I also have some of the worst dress. So I guess we could start with best dress for me. I did a top five here. I could add more, but for my top five, I had Demi Moore as my number one, Selena Gomez and Halle Berry in a close second and third. I was just loving all of the sparkles this year. Even Emma Stone showed up in head to toe sparkles. So that was kind of the ongoing theme. And I also just threw in Miley Cyrus in there because I just think lately she has been slaying the red carpets. She's always been really known for like a lot of her quirky styles, but she's kind of brought herself back down to earth a little bit, and she's showing a different side of herself that I absolutely love. And then if I had to throw a dude in there, I would say Andrew Garfield. I just thought he looked so good in the all brown. I'm loving like this monochrome moment where people are dressing in the same color from head to toe. So those are my initial thoughts.
So for me, for best dressed, I also had a couple. My number one, Coleman Domingo. That suit is straight fire that he was wearing. Like in our notes, I was like, I need like three of those. My guy, like
Yes.
just dressed to the nines. Like as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh man, that's nice. Like it was just one of those things where like I was like, that's cool. That
I
that
just knows him very well, and I think it has a tendency to get a little boring with men on the red carpet, so I'm loving men being more bold in their design choices, and Coleman always looks fantastic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I also had Demi Moore and Halle Berry on there because they just killed it. One thing I did see was from the Monkey Paw production, which is Jordan Peele's production company. He did, Get Out, Nope, Us, everything like that. But he did like these spinning shots, like they did it on the red carpet of Lupita Nyong'o and Kiki Palmer.
Yeah.
And like I didn't put Kiki on my list, and I don't know why because like hers was like beautiful, like it was great, but
See
like
Keke Palmer on the red carpet. I only saw her Vanity Fair after party look.
oh, maybe that's what I saw then. Maybe it was from the Vanity Fair after party then, and I didn't
It
see
may
it
have, because I didn't see
on.
the red carpet.
But and again, that's probably why I kept her off my list. But I still love that. But Lupita, her like the thing that like little white dress that she was wearing, and like they were doing these slow mo shots. I think I first saw it at like maybe the BAFTAs, possibly the Golden Globes, of like different people being like, "Hey, can I just have you like spin your dress and we're gonna do this like slow motion shot." I know like Pamela Anderson did it at some point. But like so Monkey Paw on like IG put up like a bunch of like these like reels and stuff of like people who've all worked on their movies and everything, and so like I saw that for hers and I was like, holy cow, that's great. And I was just like, oh, that's such a great dress. I love it. It's got like the spaghetti. It had like the spaghetti strap like kind of things to it.
The Chanel dress, which looked like Chanel, and the color of Lupita's skin, like a lot of those brighter colors just look absolutely stunning on her. I did not have her in my top five, unfortunately. I think it was just because I was loving all the sparkle. So
And
it
that's
was,
fair.
yeah, not
That's
to say
fair.
that it didn't look absolutely stunning, because she did.
And even like I'm gonna say like So I'm gonna jump to my worst
Yeah.
dressed here. First I'm gonna say Mike Ivaner and Jeremy Pope. They looked good, but their suits were things that I was like Mike Ivaner had this like velvet suit on, and I was like, I don't know, I don't think my skin could like handle that. Like that's like a I don't know if I could do that. So like he looked good. I want to say like he looked good, but I was like, for me, my skin ain't enjoying that. Jeremy Pope, he had all bow ties going down like as buttons. And if you're tying those things, nah man, I'm not playing with that. That's just like not fun. I'm not doing it. So I was like, he looked good because it was a night. It looked like a material that I would actually wear, but I was like, if I'm like tying those buttons or like whatever like that, no, no, I
Yeah.
can't do it. That's too much. That's too much on there. That's too much dip on the chip, if you will. And then moving on to who we both have, I'll allow you to jump into your list after this. Is Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
I thought he looked like a stick of butter.
There's a lot of memes going around the internet talking about how he looked like butter. And it's one of those things where it's like, again, I praise the men getting a little bit more bold in their looks, but I don't know who his stylist is, but they make him look like a 12-year-old little boy. Like everything seems so fitted on him. And it's just like his Vanity Fair after party look, I would have much preferred on the red carpet. And
Yeah,
then he could have wore that butter number to the after party. It just was a huge miss for me. I think majority of his red carpets are a miss for me. I don't like the way he's styled. And that's just my bias showing through again, but you agreed with me, so
yeah. I mean, he looked like a stick of butter. It was weird.
yeah.
It was weird.
It was
Um,
not his color.
yeah.
I think if it was like a brown or like a navy or something, it maybe would have been a little bit better. Um,
Well,
but
yeah, I mean, like
yeah,
to be fair, you said you liked Andrew Garfield, and like I'm not knocking him either, but he also looked like a piece of like Hershey chocolate, you
yeah,
know,
like
like
the monochrome look is super in right now, and I know it's like very trendy for spring in 2025, mainly on women though. So it's interesting to see the men's interpretation of it. But just everything was much more fitted to Andrew's body, I felt, and it just looked much more effortless as opposed to Timothy. Just he just always shows up in something that looks like it's 2 times too big for him, and it's not cute. Sorry, I said it.
I love
Sorry.
it. I love it.
But I mean, in that same vein, Zoe
Hmm.
Saldana was one of my worst dressed as well. As much as I love her, that
Hmm.
dress just wasn't it. Like
Yeah.
it was unflattering. I didn't like the combo of the bandeau top with the rouging of those
It
peplums.
was like a layer cake
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, it wasn't. It
No.
wasn't it. And it made me so sad because she won. So I was like, she's having her moment in this horrible but
But you know
if I
what? Like she did have her moment and she gave a wonderful speech though.
she
Like
did.
that speech was very heartfelt. Like again, I didn't watch I didn't see it in the moment. But like I watched like all the playback and stuff of it and it was great. I mean, she was our pick from like the get-go. Like my hot take that you agreed with me on was Ariana Grande, a little overrated, good but a little overrated, and Zoe should still win despite any of that controversy that was following Amelia Perez and everything else in there. And it was the only thing that kind of worried me about her win was that. But like again, she well deserved it. She gave a wonderful speech. She was awesome. Loved it.
She's been handling all the controversy very well, I would say
Mm-hmm.
as well. Like after the Oscars ended, you know how they go up on stage and they get interviewed?
Yeah.
Someone had asked her how she is responding to how poorly represented Mexicans are in the movie. They're like the heart of the movie is about Mexican culture and it was poorly interpreted. And she stood her ground and was like, I disagree with your opinion. I don't think the movie was about Mexican culture. It was about the four women and how they're dealing with systemic oppression. But she was like, but I'm open and happy to have honest conversations with the people that the movie upset and how we could have done it better. And I just was
Yeah.
like, that was such a fantastic response.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think the movie was about Mexican culture either. It was talking about the Mexican cartel, but again, it wasn't a true story. It was an artistic interpretation.
Yeah. I
So
think that was actually kind of like part of like some of my like rubbing up against it a little bit is like it kind of didn't know what kind of movie it wanted to be. It wanted to be a bunch of it had a bunch of ideas of what it wanted to kind of talk about, and in some places like throughout, Zoe is a highlight because she understood the assignment. She kind of like, despite like it kind of be the script kind of being all over the place in some in like in a lot of places like that, she understood, like she found what her through line was, and that's what her response was. It's like it's about these four like these four women and all this and what's going on with them and everything like that. And
yeah,
so yeah, like, and it shows. Like her performance was
yeah.
by far the best. Or at least I always thought it.
I stand by that as
Yeah,
well. I was very happy to see her win.
absolutely. It was so good, so good. So who else do you have?
For worst.
Yes.
I also have Gal Gadot on here and Penelope Cruz. Even though they were just presenters, I just felt their dresses were very ill-fitted. I didn't know really who else to include on here because I felt in general everyone, for the most part, was pretty well dressed. So I kind of
Yeah.
throwing people around. I do, however, agree with you when you put Mikey Madison. Like, I didn't want to say it though.
Yeah, she was just like her dress was just a little plain. It was
It
just
was.
like it was weird that it was like, I don't know if it was weird that the top was black and the rest was like pink to me, or if I felt that it should have been like blended more. But I just remember seeing it and I was like, huh, that's odd. Like I just remember being like, huh, that's an odd choice. But like again, I don't know. Maybe it was again, maybe it's a little bit of my bias of like what ended up happening that night
Yeah.
is like Mikey winning, and
Okay.
like again. So when we talk about, we're going to talk about Nora
Yeah.
later, and I have to tell you something that my that Jessica, my wife, that she told me literally yesterday when I was like talking about like us like getting ready to record and everything. And when we get to Nora, like I'll talk about it, and it's really funny because it's about my initial reaction to Nora and my initial reaction to Amelia Perez, because I watched them on the same day as like a double feature on a day that I was off because I'm crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Forward to
Um yeah. But but yeah, so like I just thought her dress was like just fine or
Yeah,
whatever, you know?
Demi was definitely dressed to win. She
Yeah.
was ready to take that statue. And
Mm-hmm.
I think with Mikey Madison, the more and more I'm learning about her and watching interviews with her, she seems much more refined than her characters that she
Mm-hmm.
plays, which
Oh
makes
yeah.
her a great actress. But maybe I don't want to slam her for how she dresses. I think in general, the
Oh yeah.
entire season, she hasn't really been wowing me. But if she knows her silhouette and if that's her vibe, that's great. But I don't think Mikey was dressed to win.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't think she was going to win. But usually, women who are nominated in the Best or Supporting Actress, they go all out.
Yeah.
And it just was everyone was like, "Can't wait to see Mikey! Can't wait to see Mikey!" And it was kind of just like, "Okay, there she is, nice." But to
Hey.
me, she was like, "Hello, I'm here.
Hey.
Thank you." And look
Yeah.
at how amazing she looks for her age. I don't even know how old she is. She must be in her 60s. Late
Yeah.
50s?
At least I can
I hope
double
I look
check
like
that.
that. I hope I look
But
like that.
but I also found your inclusion of like Gal Gadot and Penelope Cruz, because like
Yeah.
I didn't see Penelope originally on there, but I did end up seeing like gals, and I was like, yeah, that's just like another kind of like plain kind of like dress or whatever.
Yeah. It doesn't, I
Uh
don't think it fit. I don't think their dresses fit either of them that well. I don't know. It just was like, eh.
yeah. Um but who else? Did I have anything else? No, I had my and then I had my last inclusion of best dress, which is just kind of like funny in so she's 63, Demi Moore.
Okay. Yeah, she looks amazing.
Yeah, right?
Amazing.
incredible. And like it's also funny about like Mikey Madison winning, Demi Moore losing because it's like literally like the almost like the script to the substance and stuff. And like
That's literally the conversation I've been having with our friends Becky and
yeah,
Sierra. Like Becky was like, "This is literally what happened, like in the substance in real life," and I was like, "Yeah."
yeah,
And there's like so many fights going back and forth on the internet because it's all or nothing with people, and they're like, "Oh my God, stop shaming Mikey! Like she was amazing," and it's like, yes, absolutely, both things can be true. However, I think everyone was anticipating this being Demi's year, and I think she was robbed.
yeah. Well, and like I mean, so like I don't yeah, Demi was absolutely rocked. I was shocked by Mikey. I don't want to like hate on her because she is good. She is
Absolutely.
good on it. And it's just like when you're comparing two when you're just comparing great like performances and stuff,
Mhm.
like it's just like it just gets down to a certain preference. And like I just preferred Demi more than I preferred Mikey. So like I expected along with like how Demi was winning things for Demi to win. Really the only thing Mikey won was like the BAFTA.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
that was like the only like precursor that like she had won. And usually the BAFTAs are just kind of like sometimes they align, sometimes they don't.
Hmm.
A lot of times they really don't, and they're kind of just like compared to the Oscars, they're just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But like when comparing BAFTAs, Oscars, and Globes, then there's like a lot of there can be some similarities there. But like again, Mikey did because Mikey didn't win it at the Globes. You know, Demi won, and
Yeah.
Fernanda Torres won.
And when there's two such great performances, I start to look at the bigger picture. This is me personally. I don't know how it works in Oscar world, but
Right.
I started to look at the whole thing as well. The entire movie, the concept, the context of everything. And in general, I just think Demi put way more of her heart and soul into this extremely brave character. And that's my opinion.
Yeah. And like I connected with Demi's character more than I
Yeah.
did Honora's character.
Yeah.
Like, uh, and it you know it is what it is.
Mhm.
But like again, Mikey, she is great, and actually, you know what? Maybe we can just do this now. What my wife told me when I was talking about it, I was like, yeah, you know, like I was just shocked that Honora won, and she was like, really? You were shocked that Honora won? And I was like, yeah. What do you mean? She was like, well, I remember like when you first watched Honora after watching Amelia Perez, and you were like, God damn, Jessica, that's a movie. And I was like, really? And I was like, because like I always liked it. Like I always thought it was a good movie. But like I was like, did I watch it like after Amelia Perez? Do you know if I watched it like before The Brutalist? Because like I'm trying to figure out, like I thought I watched Honora after The Brutalist. But I don't know, like between the month of like December to like when we started recording, like I don't know, like maybe a month ago now, beginning of February, maybe when we dropped our first episode.
Yeah.
Like I've sat down, we sat down and we dug in and we did some work. Like we put in some hours of watching things. So it's like now I kind of don't know like where it is. And like I know for sure I only watched The Brutalist once, so I would love to have watched it again. But yeah, my wife was like, no, like you were like, God damn, that's like a real movie and that's like a good movie. And I was like, wow. So I really liked it originally. And then I just had to like inundated myself with so much other good stuff, and I just kept asking myself, is it really that good? Like that must have been like what changed like from that initial first viewing in comparison to like Amelia Perez and stuff, which is probably why Amelia Perez also like dropped down from my initial like kind of viewings of it as well, is that I connected with other movies like Nickel Boys. That movie is shot incredibly well. Highly suggest watching it just for the cinematography. But let's get back to this. So yeah, that was the thing. Like my wife was like, no, like you really responded to Honora initially. And I was like, wow, I just like sucked in so much movies that like all that's why I started now. I went back to like some new movies that I had seen just released in 2025. Gone back and tried to like think about like what I initially thought of first, so that when I rewatch them later, and if they're like nominated for things later, I can be
Yeah.
like, when I watched it here, this is what I thought. And then I watched it when it finally got released on like VOD or like on Blu-ray or 4K or whatever. And this is what I thought. And then I watched it one more time just to refresh myself now for this conversation. And I got to tell you, it's XYZ thing. Um,
There's
so
so much
yeah,
that goes into watching movies too, though, that like a lot of people don't realize. Like, I'll watch a film and then I'll be like, okay, I love it, but I love to hear other people's interpretations too. So I watch a ton of movie reviews, I watch a lot of behind the scenes videos. So I get a little bit more context into what went into making the movie. And I think that helps, I mean, positively or negatively affect my opinion of the movie. And I
yeah,
think for me, so much more went into the substance than it did for Anora in all aspects. And I don't know what it was because substance seemed to be dominating, and then all of a sudden it kind of just like lost
yeah.
its momentum. I- all the conversations that I'm having with people, they absolutely loved Anora, but they were still shocked. They were like, we didn't think it was like best film material. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what we're missing, but
Well, I mean, literally one of my notes. So as Becky and I in any podcast that I do, we make up some notes and we got some like little Google Doc that we go on that we share and everything, you know, pulling that curtain back a little bit for the people at home. And in our doc at the end here, like I asked two questions. And the two questions I ask are any takeaways from this year's Oscars, and then new things learned to like look into to make better predictions for next year or anything. And really for any takeaways, like history was made with Anora. So like let's just talk about that. Sean Baker wins 4 different Oscars for the same movie: picture, director, original screenplay, and editing.
Mhm.
Nobody in the history of the 97 Academy Awards, the 97 Oscars that there have been, nobody has ever won 4 Oscars in the same night for the same movie. There is one other person who has won 4 different Oscars in the same night, and his name is Walt Disney.
Really?
Because, yes, in 1953, he wins Best Documentary Short, Best Cartoon Short, which is now Best Animated Short, and then there was Best Short Subject, which I believe is now more or less the Best Live Action Short.
Okay.
So he won feature documentary, short cartoon, and short subject in 1953. So he's the only. So Walt Disney was the only other person up until Sean Baker on Sunday night, which is kind of crazy, which is like wild to think about because like James Cameron, who also won, Titanic, is in Oscar history of winning 10 or more Oscars, just like Return of the King, just like Ben-Hur, all of those movies nominated for 10 or more Oscars, won 10 or more Oscars. So like you don't really see these kind of things. And like it almost swept. The only thing it lost to was Best Supporting, which sorry, sorry, Ivan, man, like you had no shot. Like
Yeah.
Kiernan was winning that. Like if there was there were 2 awards that I was for sure on for wins. Kiernan Culkin for supporting, Conclave for best adapted.
Yeah.
Only two only 2 awards that if you asked me to put money on it, I would have been like, here you go. Here's my money. No
Yeah,
problem.
because even we can get into the other nominations too, but there were a couple other surprises, good,
Yeah.
bad, from the Oscars. So,
Let's talk about some shocks and surprises.
yeah. Should we start with good or bad?
You know what? Let it. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to? What do you want to talk about first? We've talked a lot about Anora, which was in part of your upsets. So
Yeah,
do you want to stick with upsets?
yeah, we could stick with upsets. I think Anora in general, were my biggest upsets. And that makes me sound like a hater. I did like the movie. I
Mhm.
loved Mikey's performance. I thought she carried the movie, but I was genuinely shocked with all the awards that it won. I just was like, really? Like, really? You know that I'm biased. I really wanted A Real Pain to win original screenplay, even though I
Yep.
knew it probably wouldn't. I felt
Hmm.
very strongly about it, so I could not change my vote on that specific one. So I did have that
Where
as that.
Whereas I text you and I'm like, I'm a terrible person. I switched my best original screenplay vote to Honora because one of the things that we can dive into in a little bit is like precursors and stuff, and like it just ate that WGA win just kept eating at the
Yeah.
back of my mind.
Yeah,
But
and that's
continue.
another
Sorry.
thing that goes into it is there's also so many politics going on in
Hmm.
seasons that we don't necessarily see or hear. But that was one of my upsets. I mentioned that I needed to vote with my head and not my heart if I wanted to win
Yep.
because I was like, clearly everything that I voted for with my heart did not win. That included Coleman Domingo, even though I knew he was not going to win. I would have loved to have seen him win, but that's
Mhm.
neither here nor there. Um, and then do you want me to keep going down my upsets, or are we still on the Honora train?
Yeah, keep going. I've got nothing really else to say about like Honora.
Yeah.
I was shocked at the like I had Honora for editing for a long time
Mhm.
because I like despite me feeling that it is long, I was like, it is like smoothly cut together. As it like moves along, it is smoothly done. Like I didn't have many questions of like, holy shit, where am I right now? Or
Yeah.
anything like that. So like it kept with like it moving transitionally to scene very well. There is still I still agree that it is about 20 minutes too long in my opinion of it. And so like that's where like you sent me that one podcast of those brothers that do it, and they were talking about how they picked how they really like the editing of Conclave, and that was something that I was just like, holy cow, I didn't even think about how the writing, the editing, and like how I like the musical score, how all of those things I really kind of wrap together. So like ultimately, like they kind of flipped a switch for me where I was like, I think it should be Conclave because I do agree that Conclave is paced very well. It's obviously it won Best Adapted. I also really love the score, and I think all three of those things of like kind of matter on helping to keep pace, like how it's written, how it's cut together, and then how the music, whether you necessarily give like timing cues for like reveals or whatever in your music, or whether you're just trying to keep a beat to the story
Yeah.
going, like as things intense, you intense, and as it falls. Uh, but yeah, so like I ended up changing originally from Honora, because like in Honora when they're in Vegas and like they just get married, like that whole sequence of them like just walking around and stuff, like I was like, fuck man, like that like you felt that happiness, and I was like, this is cool, like
Yeah.
I like that, and it's like for all of the rest of the movie, like that's where I was like, this is really well edited. So that's where I had it at first, but that's the only other thing I really have to say about
Honora.
about Honora then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean my next point was that Substance kind of tanked. I made that comment already. They only won makeup, is that correct?
Yes. Only
Yeah.
one makeup, but if we're being honest, if anybody else would have won makeup, like I'm rioting.
Oh
Like
yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
in the streets rioting because nobody else deserved it more. Like
Yeah, absolutely. I,
like
I mean, A
even just
Different Man, I think would come to a close second, but there was only one character. The substance there just was makeup and special effects fucking everywhere you look, and it I keep using this word, but it was just visceral. It was amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was way too good. It was by and like like you weren't disparaging against like Wicked when you said like what is Wicked gonna win because they just painted Cynthia Erivo green. It's like you're not knocking them. Like Cynthia Erivo gave a great performance. We're not knocking her. The makeup actually did look good on her,
Mhm.
but like I don't know that last like 40 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes of like the substance, like you're gonna tell me that right then and there for that makeup and those effects there that they don't deserve it? Like get out of here. What are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Because like you're not going to give that kind of makeup or special effects to like a Dune or whatever, because
Mhm.
all their kind of stuff like that is all visual effects.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
or they would get like a costuming thing, not like makeup and stuff for that. Like all of that would be visual and costuming and like production design or whatever. So like, yes, there was nobody more deserving than the substance for makeup. I would listen to a conversation about a different man, but I agree with you that really the most makeup of it is in the first 30-ish,
Yeah.
40 minutes of
Like
that
that.
movie.
Mhm.
And then it kind of changes into a whole different kind of other movie, which like I gotta say, watch a different man. Like that movie was wild and it was so good. It was so good.
I was like uncomfortable throughout the entire film. I was
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you're not supposed to be like you're not supposed to be like sitting there being like during
yeah.
that. Like you're supposed to be like, whoa.
I just love like the study of human behavior. So I
Yeah,
love films that kind of touch on this man has this disease his entire life, and all of a sudden he's cured, and he's a grown ass man, so he doesn't
yeah,
really know how to navigate it. So
yep.
I it kept me on my toes.
It
But
was
of
very
course, it just wasn't
and
recognized much as some of the other films.
it really wasn't. I mean, Sebastian Stan again at the Globes got that dual nomination. I
Yeah.
talked about it before. I would have liked to have seen him get nominated for A Different Man over The Apprentice, but I didn't watch The Apprentice. I probably never will, unfortunately. I can't like I can't really like buy into like giving my money to a movie about Trump. So like
Yeah, same.
sorry about it. But so then moving on to your next upset, which is actually something that like bothered me as well. That I was just also like, whoa, what's
Yeah,
going on here?
this is me literally now just nitpicking things that people were actually doing at the show, but Adrian Brody had gum in his mouth and he forgot. And so while he was walking up the stairs, he like spit the gum out and threw it at his wife. And
His
I was
wife.
like, did we really just catch that on camera? Because that was horrific. Maybe he didn't expect to win. Maybe he thought it was going to go in a different direction, but like then his fucking speech rambled on forever and ever. I don't know if this is true. I didn't fact check, but Becky said that it was the longest Oscar speech of all time at like 5 minutes. Was that? I didn't time it. I eventually started looking at my phone because I was like bored.
It took forever. It was
Yeah.
wild. The fact that he was like, hey, cut the music. I've done this before. I was like, oh my god, get him off the stage.
Me too.
Just get him
I was like,
off.
fuck this guy. Especially
Um,
because all the little guys that people don't necessarily know or pay attention to as much, like the documentaries and stuff, they got cut off. So
yeah,
because of people like him, I was like,
yeah. And it's like that's one thing. Like there was one guy literally in the visual effects who didn't even get to like
I saw
simply
that.
thank his wife. And like
Yeah,
and then like Adrian Brody had like the gall to do that. Like that just annoyed me. And like I know Kieran Culkin kind of did that too with like his speech, and like we'll move into his speech like right now as well. But like that bothers me. Like some of these people may never win another award or
yeah,
never be up on that stage ever again. And you're not even gonna let them be like, hey, thanks for my wife and like, the filmmakers and like the rest of the people who have like got helped me get here. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I've worked hard, but like people have given me a shot and like that's awesome. You know who you are. Peace, I'm out. Like you can't what is
I
that?
know.
15
It's sad.
15 seconds or less? Like, come on, what are we doing here? And like I get it, like I was watching this originally on Hulu. Now, were you watching this on ABC or on Hulu?
So I started it on Hulu, but it kept freezing, so it pissed me off. So I switched to YouTube TV and was watching it on ABC.
Okay. So if you streamed on Hulu, it cut it off before Best Actress in like the last three, it cut off the broadcast because like I was texting AJ, our mutual friend, and like I mean I was texting you during the show. My wife was sitting next to me, like during the live action short for like I'm Not a Robot. I was like, oh my God, and like my wife like tried getting my reaction, but I didn't like hold my like oh my god face long enough for her, I guess. Because I just went on like that was the live action short. I didn't vote for it.
Yeah.
Because when me and my brother saw the live action and animated shorts, we both picked Anuja to win. And like that was a short about sisters and stuff. And since I was seeing it with my brother, like I don't know, that just probably hit us because we were watching that together a little bit more. But out of all of them, the one that I wanted to see expanded on to like a feature or some kind was I'm Not a Robot. So like I fucking like lost it when it won. I was like, oh my god, that's crazy. But Kieran Culkin, sorry to bring it back to
Oh,
Kieran. Um, him talking about like, hey, so after like the Emmy win, you're I'm gonna have a third kid, and after
I
you know this,
expected him to be quirky and silly, as are all of his acceptance speeches. Like, even when he was winning for Succession and stuff, like, he's
yeah,
just a silly guy. And I love him. I love a Culkin. I love all the Culkins. But he just kept going on about how he was going to impregnate his wife. And I just was like, can we move on from this? Like, okay, we get it. If I was his wife, I would have been mortified. I would have been like, he could have brought it up and then like it would have been like a silly joke, but he just like kept talking and was like,
yeah,
oh, like I said I wanted four, and then you said this, and then you said haha, and now I won, and so now we're gonna make some babies. And I was like,
could have
okay.
just could have just told us the one story about like,
Yeah,
remember I won an Oscar, or you said
yeah.
we could have a fourth kid if I won an Oscar. Well, here's the Oscar. And then like just move on with thanking people, like, or just like be like, all right, everybody, see you, thank you, I
It's
appreciate
just
it, and
so
then like
funny
walk
because
off.
you can tell he's socially awkward and feels very even though he's an actor, you could tell he feels very uncomfortable on stage.
Yeah,
So just randomness comes out of his mouth. But it's so funny to see him accept an award and say those things, and then people like Zoe accept an award and say the things that she said. It's just like completely different. So
yep.
funny. I love him. I would love to continue to see him be awarded for his work, but I was like, okay, enough with talking about impregnating your wife. Like, let's move on. It
Yeah,
just
we
felt,
could.
as a woman, it just felt kind of icky to me. I was like, okay, if my husband just won an Oscar and just kept talking about how I needed to give him another baby, I would be like, mm, next. Moving on, please.
Next item on the list here. We're gonna skip that one right now. But yeah, like that was super awkward. Again, that was something that I didn't watch in real time, but I
Yeah,
watched afterwards, and I was just like, "That's one way to accept an Oscar."
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I didn't. Yeah, I didn't necessarily. It was funny. It was definitely TMI.
yeah.
That was the TMI turkey like instance there. Definitely
I've
didn't
never
need to
heard
know
of the
that.
TMI turkey. I've heard of the awkward turkey. Is it awkward turkey?
I thought it was the
Or the
awkward
snail?
turtle.
Oh,
That
awkward
was the
turtle. There's a snail. Okay, now we're just getting.
TMI turkey. Now we're just getting into weird animal hand signals, gestures, whatever. Um, but so then you had two other things of just saying, and this will go into like what I was talking about with like the final two questions that I asked, like any takeaways. I told you about the Oscar history already. But one thing that I learned to look into or take or to make better decisions, take a little bit more seriously, is the all of the precursors, like the WGA wins, critic choice, and all of that kind of stuff. Seeing all of those kind of things and why, and kind of paying a little bit more attention to that because Honora did win. The Palme d'Or did win PGA, despite being like basically shut out at the Globes and virtually at like kind of Critics' Choice and stuff as well. It
Yeah,
won the Palme d'Or and then it won all of the guilds. It won WGA, PGA, and DGA.
yeah.
And that is ultimately why I changed director and writer.
Hmm.
And PGA, previous to 97, the 97th Oscars here on Sunday, has predicted 7 of the last 10 Best Picture winners. One of them not being Parasite because that wasn't like it's not an American production. So it like it wouldn't have been nominated for like the PGA Guild or DGA or WGA or any of that because it was an
Yeah,
international feature. But it did win Best Original, Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay and Best International Feature. But that's why again, Bong Joon Ho, a lot of people were like, "Oh, Parasite, he won 4 Oscars." no, the international feature Oscar is awarded to the country, not to like the filmmaker or filmmakers or producers or writers or anything like that. So like now Bong Joon Ho, he may have that best international feature Oscar sitting in his house
Yeah.
because Japan, or I'm sorry, Korea would have like, awarded him that, like given him that. So yeah. And it's like the same people who just did like I'm Still Here.
Hmm.
Like they may have that Oscar in their like house or whatever now, but it's technically awarded to Brazil. And that's why they did announce when I'm Still Here won. It's the first Oscar win for Brazil. It's
So,
not like even the first Oscar win for the filmmakers. It's the first Oscar win for that country.
yeah.
Same thing with Flow, which
Yes.
was oh my god, I was so happy. It was another one of those things that I didn't get to see in real time, but I like that I watched after, and I love that you sent me your little like reaction video to it winning.
I did record myself because I was like, I wanted to hopefully get one genuine reaction because in my head I was like, okay, it's not gonna win. I was like, but in the off chance that it does, I want my genuine reaction recorded. And I got it, and it was great. I was so genuinely happy. That probably may have been the highlight of the entire evening for me, to be quite
Yeah,
honest. So.
the
Which is funny
little
though, because I didn't have it winning in our little app. I thought I changed it the morning of, but I must not have.
my wife said the same thing. She said that thought she changed a couple of things, and then like turns out that she didn't
Yeah.
or whatever. So some of the shocks that I talked about, I already said I'm not a robot. Documentary. This is really shorts. This is something that like we talked about in our part two pod of like accessibility of shorts and documentaries.
Yeah.
Like even right now, we are recording this on the 5th. On March 11th, Colin and I are going to see No Other Land up in Alamo Drafthouse in Wrigleyville here in
Mhm.
Chicago, because like that movie still doesn't have major distribution throughout like the country and stuff. Like it doesn't have a home for streaming or for home video or anything yet. And they won, best documentary at the Oscars here.
Yeah, their acceptance speech was really good as well. So it's just
And so as much as we're talking about like those guys from the guy from visual effects who wasn't able to actually talk, Adrian Brody, just babbling on, I'm very happy they actually allowed these guys to just give their speech and say their piece. So
yeah.
as much as those other two things are like on the opposite ends of like he shouldn't have been cut off and he shouldn't have been able to go that long, it
Mhm.
is good that at least they met in the middle here and
Yeah.
allowed these people to talk,
Yeah, I agree.
because short of their movie, they're not really having the ability to talk about it because they don't have a studio behind them promoting it for these Oscars. So like unless they're doing like podcasts with people or like putting out their own YouTube videos trying to like do things like this, like nobody's really talking about this movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, all documentaries I missed out. I didn't see any of the documentaries. So like me,
It's a shame with all the misinformation there is on social media and stuff nowadays. Like we need
right.
access to documentaries like that. So
Yeah.
it's a shame. But hopefully now after since award season is over, we'll have access to those and still make the effort to watch
I,
them.
right, because no matter what, I don't care what anybody says, if your movie wins an Oscar, that
Mhm.
means people will want to see it.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yes.
People will want to see it. You'll obviously have a huge influx once you first make that stuff available, and then eventually it'll plateau or whatever and go flat. But like that's just like anything. Um any kind of like sales product, but like that, like people need to see documentaries.
Yep.
They like I loved what Samuel Jackson was like talking about, like being like, documentaries are awesome because the filmmakers, the producers, the editors and stuff, they do all the research to get this subject out there, to formulate this story so that you can see and learn about it. And then it makes me sound smarter at parties and like dinners
Yep.
because I'm talking about these new facts that I learned from this new movie and stuff.
Mhm.
And he's so right.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right. And like I know a writer for the Oscars wrote that speech for him.
Yeah.
Maybe he had some, like, he's Samuel L. Jackson, he's talented. He might have had some input in like how he might personally feel. And then somebody made a script from like, prompts that he gave or whatever. I don't even care about that. That's way too much inside baseball for like what I for our purposes here. But like I stand by that, and I really liked, and like, to be fair, I really liked what Sean Baker was saying, like, please, people, go see films in theaters. Like, streaming is nice, but movies, please continue to make movies to be seen on the big screen. And I can't agree more. Like,
I
I loved what Brady Corbet said as well in his Golden Globe speech of like, again, allow filmmakers to get final cut, see films on, like, if a filmmaker wants to make something in 70 millimeter, let him. It's part of the or let him or her. It's part of their vision as like all of that. And Sean Baker was echoing that. I love seeing movies. We talk about, a theater that we both like go to and have gone to and stuff. I'm telling you, the seats are better. I'm telling you, they are better.
good.
I
People are
promise
happy.
you. No, 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 because they were awful. Like Music
Yeah.
Box. I'm very happy about your renovations up there. Like, I love you guys because you definitely play like some of the weirdest shit in the world. And you gave me access to like the Oscar shorts that I didn't have before. But like, we also need Music Box to be able to have those shorts start playing in like January.
Yeah.
Not the documentary shorts playing February 28th, the Friday before the Oscars
Yeah.
air on that Sunday. Like, come on. Um, but anyhow, so that is kind of that. Like, Nora winning 5 out of 6, that's wild. Plenty of other movies have won like the big five and things like that, picture, director, actor, and actress, and screenplay. But it's wild that Sean Baker won those four.
Hmm.
Like, that's like truly shocking. And like, I just didn't expect it, at all.
There.
Um, I love Conclave's win for adapted. I
Mhm.
love, obviously we've talked about Zoe. For the losers, like I said, the editing for Conclave over Nora, that like was kind of shocking to me. I did end up buying in a little bit too much into that Amelia Perez hate, and I ended up going with the Journey from the 688 as best original song over El Mal, and El Mal ended up winning.
I was
I,
pretty confident in that. I was a little upset to see two Amelia Perez songs nominated, but I was fairly confident that Elma was going to win because it just had been sweeping everything else. So,
Yeah. And again, that's one of those things, like the precursors for that were pretty like all like pretty set in stone for it, that it was going to win or it should win and stuff like that. It really wasn't losing or anything. So I should have, again, like, one of my things to learn, like, look at those precursors a little bit more closely, and like what you were saying, like, whatever we have in our heart, like. And I'm also thinking that for next year, maybe we do two lists. We do the heart list and we do the head list.
yeah, right.
and
No. See
and
which
like
one's harder,
yeah,
harder.
yeah, but like, we do that to see like which ones end up, like, if us voting with our heart, did we get more right just straight up voting with our heart, or if us like looking into like precursors of previous wins, other wins, things like that, and actually like doing the
The
the Zach
math.
Galifianakis from like The Hangover, all of the
Yes.
math,
I
all of
was
the
just saying
math
it's
of it.
very similar to like fantasy football too. Like
Mhm.
I've never really done fantasy football, but I understand you're trying to build a team to win. So you're not necessarily building your team off of your heart or your personal passions against or how you feel about the Chicago Bears, for example, but you're building your team based off of prerequisites. So it's very
It's
similar.
literally fantasy football, and all that kind of stuff is literally Moneyball put into like
Mhm.
betting, and kind of,
Great movie.
because it like that's literally what the idea of Moneyball was like, not picking the biggest, most highest played payers. It was picking the people who was the best percentage, had the best percentage as a first baseman, as a
Mhm.
second baseman,
They used
as
statistics,
shortstop and stuff.
right? And it worked.
Yeah. I
Great.
mean, they made it to the playoffs. They didn't win a World Series, that A's team, but like, Billy Bean and like that same principle was then applied to Boston, who had a little bit of a, excuse me, bigger pocketbook, but they ended up getting rid of their drought and winning the World Series in '04. And
Mhm.
that's how they won it. And then the White Sox won it in '05. Not doing that kind of baseball. We just were the White Sox.
We were
I
just the
don't know.
best team in the entire freaking world, and still are. Okay, that was that was the best team. Okay, now we're getting off topic, and we're also biased, but
Yes.
literally,
As we're both wearing black t-shirts, like white and black, the colors of the socks anyhow, not which as I point that out, it's not anything that we had planned. It's not like I was like, "Hey Becky, we're wearing the black shirts today. I've been wearing my Oscar one the whole series, so I'm going to be in that. Like make sure you got black on." No,
I need
no.
to get a shirt for next year. But
we
yes.
I need a new one cuz this is kind of tight. And I
Oh,
don't
the joys of aging, right?
exactly love it. Um, Two other like things of like shocks that I had was Conclave losing to Brutalist for score. Again, this goes back to me watching Conclave a lot and like watching it twice, maybe even three times, and really liking it and responding to it. I only got to see the Brutalist once in theaters. Now it was a great theater experience and I loved it. And it like it always kind of like remained there with me despite some of that AI controversy. The
Yeah.
AI controversy really kind of just dropped the acting for me. So like that's why I thought with the SAG win, I actually went the opposite way of PGA.
Mhm.
Because Timmy won the SAG, I kept Timmy to win Best Actor. I
Yeah.
thought that AI controversy might have been enough to knock Adrian Brody out, but I was wrong.
Did I
Adrian
vote for
Brody,
Adrian Brody? I did vote for Adrian Brody.
yep, you
I
kept
stopped
him
having seen the movie though. But for me, it was like it was this was still a heart choice because I did not want to show it.
right.
I'm such an asshole, but I'm sorry. That's how I feel, and I'm standing by it. If I voted with my heart, it would have been Coleman Domingo, but I kind of went just with what I thought
Yeah.
the industry would vote for, and it was Adrian. But I noticed when I was making this list, I voted for Wicked for original score, and I was like, in what mind was I? Because I never would have thought that Wicked would have won original score. So I don't know if that was a mistake on my end, but
Yeah. Oh my
it's
gosh.
sad with that
I
one.
You did. That's so funny. I mean, but like again, it's one of those things like the Brutalist is only now available to like be to like pre-order and stuff. Almost all of these Oscar winners are available on VOD, like Conclave. Like you can get the Brutalist on VOD. You can get Amelia Perez. No, that's only on Netflix. But like Wicked, you can get on VOD. The Wild Robot, all of that stuff. But Conclave and Wild Robot are also on Peacock. Um, Netflix has Amelia Perez, has The Only Girl in the Orchestra. Um, Actually, Anuja, uh, that I had picked for a live action short, I think is a Netflix production, but I'm not sure if it's streaming on Netflix just yet. But I believe that was the title, like production before we saw it. Before I saw that. Um, so let's go. So we talked about Honora for Best Picture and stuff. Do you have anything else you want to say? Like we both picked the Brutalist. I really thought it was gonna win. Again, Honora winning. That's one of those things. Winning the PGA, I should have assumed that it was
Mhm.
gonna win. Because again, it's one of those things. Like I picked Sean Baker to win Best Director, and I picked him for Best original screenplay at that point. I should have just been like Wyatt. I don't know. That was like just a bad call on my part, but it's also because like I really did like The Brutalist. Like The Brutalist is really good, and it's a movie that should be seen on like a big screen
Yeah.
first. It like it's just a good flick.
Yeah, again, I didn't see it. I hope one day I will take the time to actually sit down and watch it. It'll probably be just at home, but it's so long.
It is. Sean, yeah, Sean Baker winning director. We both like. I did a last minute switch to him because of the DGA win. Same thing with the original screenplay. You stuck with your guns with Coralie.
Yeah, again, that was a heart vote. But honestly, I truly think she deserved it just based on the research that I did. I thought there was so much creativity that went into it because it was another one where she didn't have a large budget. I think Sean Baker said he only had 6 million. I
Hmm.
don't remember how much Coralie said she had, but even
She's
some of the shots where where like Margaret's like walking and you could see her hands, that wasn't Margaret, it was Coralie.
yeah, yeah.
So she worked really well with a very small budget. And like I don't think anyone would have known that unless you actually watched all the behind the scenes stuff.
And that's the beauty of the substance though, and why for me as like a horror, not saying that you, I know you love horror, but like I also love like this body horror kind of stuff. And um like so like when I talk about like Tom Savini, Robert Kirkman, these are like the guys that like made like Dawn of the Dead and made like Freddy Krueger, Jason, and all of those kills and that stuff. Like Greg Nicotero does everything for The Walking Dead, and like so these are just like the guys that have been scaring me my entire fucking life, basically. Like making all these different killers and creatures and stuff, and like they've all worked with like either like John Carpenter, George Romero, or like Wes Craven and stuff. Like these icons, and I just love that we now have Coraline there too, and like the team that like won the best makeup and everything for them. I'm trying to think of Pierre Oliver Pearson, Stephanie Gullen, and Marilyn Scarzelli. I believe is how you would enunciate all their names. And like they're now up there like in that like they did things that none of those other guys have done, win an Oscar for their stuff.
Yeah.
Like despite getting a ton of accolades and like everybody knows to like, if you want to make something like that, like you want to talk to these guys, or like even like Phil Tippett, who does like the stop motion, like he did a bunch of creature stuff for like Star Wars and like Super, like he was nominated for an Oscar for best visual effects for Super Troopers as well. I mean, he won a special Oscar for Star Wars for 1977 for the original Star Wars, because there was no like visual effects Oscar kind of like really then. And that kind of like, again, was one of those things like Pixar then in 93 or 95 or whatever that then was like, oh, maybe we should like give a best animated feature that would happen then in 2001. And Shrek would go on to win that and be the first official Academy Award winner for Best Animated Feature. The Toy Story one was again a special achievement that year. Like
Yeah.
only gives out when people like kind of break the mold, and there's no denying that's what Toy Story did. And Coraline and her team did the same thing here, and that it's rightfully deserved for it. It's again, it's one of those things where like I really wanted it to win that, but like if something else would have like I don't know, there was a lot of hype behind Wicked for everything,
Yeah.
for everything. And like Wicked won some great stuff, like production design.
I
First
was
time a
very
black
happy with Wicked's wins because
like
everyone's like, "Oh, how did Wicked not win like Best Musical at the Golden Globes?" And I was like, this is gonna sound really mean, but it was literally a carbon copy of the stage play.
right.
I think it absolutely deserved production design. They literally built Shiz. They built Munchkinland. They planted 9 million tulips for one scene in that entire fucking movie. I was like, yeah, the production design was absolutely insane. So I was very happy it won that. And for costumes, like speaking of costumes, that little bit they did at the beginning of the category.
So like you talked about Ariana Grande's
Yeah.
like dress. So like I thought her dress again, like that pink one, fine. But that red dress that she was
Yeah.
wearing with the like ruby slipper and shit on the
Yeah.
back, that looks slick. I
Yeah.
was like, that is cool. That
I
is a
love
neat dress. So I did really like that dress as well. Which is actually kind of why I didn't put her on either one because she like canceled herself out. She had one really cool dress that I like really liked, that red one, and
Yeah.
then again that pink one. I don't know, maybe it was just like pink because like some of the shots of like I think it might have been the Vogue background or whatever was like a light kind of like pink background, and
Yeah.
people like Ariana Grande and like Mikey Madsen kind of just like and other people who wore like a kind of light pink kind of just started blending into like the background. And so like maybe I was just looking at some of them on a bad background and I was just like, ooh, like
Well, Ariana's dress was like cute and pink and sparkly like Glinda. I really liked how Cynthia and Ariana played into their characters because they started to like deviate from that a little bit. But like Ariana was wearing like deep green and or I'm sorry, Cynthia was wearing deep green and Ariana was wearing pink.
yep.
It just looked like Ariana's dress looked like an umbrella that was like open and had like stuff hanging from it. And I would have much preferred her to have worn that red dress on the red carpet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Um so I love that. I like Paul Tazwell winning
Oh,
best
for
costume.
costume. Mhm.
Yeah, for Wicked being the first black man, African American man to like win. That's awesome. Like
Yeah.
that dude was so happy.
Yes.
And like I'm not saying that anybody else who won wasn't so happy with their win,
Of
but
course.
like that like that dude was exceptionally happy that like he had won and like his work was like
Yeah.
recognized and everything like that. And it's like the same thing like seeing Gintz Zablonsky, the guy who directed Flow and like did all of that, like him every time he's up there, like the dude's just like so happy talking about his like movie and stuff. Like he's just like, yeah, me, and then a
Yeah.
couple other people, like, we just got together and like we made this
Everyone
movie.
always
It's
talks
awesome.
about the actors, and it's like it's funny because then yeah, you could see like speeches like Adrian Brody and then speeches like Paul Tazewell, where it's like you can just tell that it means so much more to one person than another. I'm not trying to take away that it didn't mean so much for Adrian Brody because I'm sure it did,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I'm just really happy
It's
to.
also it's also Adrian Brody's second, and
Yeah.
it was Paul's first. So like like it was
Exactly.
Kiernan's first. So like the and like that's actually probably a better comparison of like you were saying, like Kiernan has this very like stage kind of like anxiety that he just like has with all of
Yeah.
his speeches. They're all kind of awkward like that. It's not that he's like ever mean. However, he did take a swipe at Adrian Brody at I think it was maybe the BAFTAs or something.
Yeah.
Like where he actually like called out Adrian Brody, I think for actually talking too long. And it's even funnier now that Adrian Brody at the Oscars then did talk like so long for his thing. It's just
It's
funny.
not necessarily the talking song for me so much as the demanding of it.
That's fair too.
I would have just cut his ass off and been like, sorry, like make an Instagram live video later tonight. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. But
Um,
it's really, really, really because I mean, admittedly, I don't know those stats. So when he stood up there and was like, I'm the first black man to accept this award, it's so like heartwarming and amazing to see.
yeah. Well, and like that's kind of what I like. I told you in our notes here, like my like words that I kind of thought of for this year's Oscars was like wild and indie. Like just things I like it was wild for things that I didn't expect. Like I was particularly talking about like the Honora like winning 5 out of the 6 categories, specifically Mikey Madison. Like that was the true biggest shock for me of the night. If I'm going to
Yeah.
be honest, was Mikey Madison dethroning Demi Moore for it, and then of course it just gave us like more fodder, like how Margot Robbie gets snubbed like last year at the Oscars, and it's like, oh yeah, everybody, like it's like again, like the idea of Barbie, like she's just like kind of overlooked. You
I
nominate Ken and not Barbie in that.
Yeah, I
And
was more upset with Greta being snubbed.
oh, I agree.
But
I
yes,
agree.
when Ryan Gosling got the nom and Margot Robbie did not, I was like, this is bullshit. As much as Ryan Gosling
He's very funny in it. He
personified that, like, yeah, he
he's
was
great.
Ken.
He
Um,
he's great, and and his performance is well deserved, but it's just like, again, it's like one of those things. It's like, you guys missed the point of it. Like, you're missing
Literally.
the point of, like, literally. But at least America Ferrera was nominated.
Oh yeah,
Somebody who also deserved to be nominated.
100%.
And like, she is the one that like gives the speech at the end. So like, maybe that's why, because like, as much as Margot Robbie gives a great performance of this character and stuff, like, again, we talked about Stanley Tucci. Would have loved to have seen him get a supporting nom, but I was like, I think that dude needed one or two more scenes of like where he just like takes control. And if you just play that America Ferrera monologue of like where she's like, when they're in Weird Barbie's house, they just get Margot Robbie back and they're there. It's like right at the end, as they start realizing that like she can snap all the Barbies under the Ken's like patriarchy control. Like, she
Yeah.
can snap them all out of it by like just talking about what it feels like to be a woman in this day and age. And like, just play that monologue. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, she deserves a nom. Like, if you're gonna submit any like scene for her to like, you're gonna do that one, because she is just so good,
100%.
on point, and just like kills it. Like, it's great.
Yeah, I think with Barbie, it was a huge upset because so many people got lost in the fact that it was Barbie, but Greta was using it as a character to talk about a way bigger problem in society. And people are just like,
Yep.
oh, this is like a movie about a doll. And it's like, it's really not. Um, so yeah, that was a huge snub last year, in my
Yeah,
opinion. I love
I
that movie.
agree.
I could watch it all the time.
Greta has been like, as a filmmaker, because she was, again, she acted for like a long time too, like back in like the like 90s and like 2000s, before she really kind of got her chance to be able to start writing and directing. She always wrote with like Noah Baumbach and stuff. Um and it's just great to see her now get like all of these great directing jobs. Like,
What is
what is
she
it?
working
Lady
on?
Bird, right? Isn't that her first
Yeah.
one?
Yes, she did do Lady Bird. Is she, what
Yeah.
is she working on right now?
Chronicles of Narnia for Netflix.
Oh, is she?
She's doing a
Interesting.
two-part Chronicles of Narnia movie. Now, I don't know. Now, Chronicles of Narnia, is it going to be the first book in like two parts? Is it going to be book one and book two? I, I
Probably.
have I have no. Are they going to try and take all nine of those books and make it into two movies?
I've never
I
read
have.
any of the books or seen any of the movies. The only thing I know about the Chronicles of Narnia is the SNL short. Amber and Chris Parnell.
That's hilarious. Uh, so Disney made, excuse me, fine movies. They're not amazing or great, but they are fun kid adventure movies. That I would compare. So like, a lot of people hate Hook, but do you like Hook?
Hook is one of the best movies of all time.
Okay, that's for our generation though. People like older than us and younger than us are like, what is this garbage?
It's
Be-
not garbage.
Becky, I am not.
Stacked ass cast. Are you kidding me? It's one of the
I
best movies ever.
Becky, when was the last time you watched Hook? I'm not disagreeing with you, but that movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes long.
But it's so good. See, I would have never known that, but it's so
It's
good.
2 hours and 20. I mean, because as kids, we like watching a movie just felt like days, but we were always so engaged for the greatness. And Robin Williams is awesome. Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook is great. You get Maggie Smith as Wendy.
You get Julia
Amazing.
Roberts as Tinkerbell. You get Glenn Close as a random ass pirate. Like,
Yes. It's You get Bob Hoskins as Smee. Like, it's great.
yes.
So like, I agree that like I love it. Like, my wife Jessica loves it, who's also like our age and of our generation. And so yeah, but like it is not looked upon fondly by like people like outside of us. But it was like one of those movies that was on cable all the time.
And movies just become cult classics, right? Like Rocky
Yeah.
Horror Picture Show was met with such disdain, and now look at it. It's a Halloween staple. I
Oh
love
yeah, it's a Midnight Madness like
that.
kind of movie. Absolutely.
Yes.
Um,
We got way off track.
absolutely, but that's okay. So we're reeling ourselves back in here now. So we talked about best actor. We've talked about leading actress, Mikey. We've talked about supporting actor and actress. Conclave was the only thing that I felt. Again, Kiernan and Conclave for adapted were the only two things that I were like for sure are
Yeah.
happening without question.
I felt
Um,
confident about Substance with makeup too.
so oh yeah, I felt pretty confident with Substance as well. Nothing really. I didn't really think of anything else that could have possibly like dethroned it, but um, crazier things can happen, and usually body horror movies like that aren't actually rewarded.
You're right.
So like, there's a long history of that not being rewarded, not even being like nominated for like makeup and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So this was like for all of like how much it was highly nominated and only walking away with makeup, like the Substance made a major breakthrough for horror,
Yeah.
body horror, and I think like even female like filmmakers.
Hmm.
Like I mean, we've talked about like just diversity in general of like filmmaking, allowing other people to get out there and tell their stories, and then like I don't know, if you're an old crusty person being like, no, well, then what about my stories? It's like, they could be your story too. Did you ever think that you might be able to relate to this? Have you
Yeah.
ever gotten outside of your own block or your own neighborhood?
Yes.
Like, come on, give it a chance. Give it a
Mhm.
chance. Which then moves into like animated and international film, like something I am actively always trying to do. Trying to see more international flicks, or just telling people to like give international flicks a chance. Like, hey, if you can give me like, I'm a big fan of like not saying that like you've ever tried to gate people on this stuff, but like I hate when somebody's like, oh, I like this, and then somebody else is like, that's not the real thing. You're
Yeah.
stupid for liking that. You're not liking the right thing. Like for me, growing up, I used to I still love it. Like Pokemon, Digimon, and Yu-Gi-Oh, like all these like little early anime shows and stuff. And like somebody early on was like to me was like, that's not real anime, like you're a loser or whatever. So like whatever they then said to me next of like to like watch, I was like, no, only assholes watch that shit. So like I'm never gonna watch it. So like I'm just as bad in the
Yeah.
fact that like I took the wrong thing from it instead of just being like, oh, maybe I should watch this. Like it took me a long time for me, and like that's part of the reason why I try and watch a lot more anime.
Yeah. Our
Because I
pride gets
definitely
in the way sometimes, you know.
huh?
Our pride gets in the way
Oh
sometimes.
yeah.
But I admittedly even need to be better as well. It has a lot to do with accessibility, like we already touched base on, and also a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to sit and watch a 3 hour long movie if it's in all subtitles. Because yes, you sometimes will find yourself staring at the subtitles and completely missing the context of the movie, right?
Yeah.
But admittedly I need to get better at that kind of stuff myself because you can't develop an opinion without actually seeing it for yourself.
Right. And like the idea of then trying to even like for our purposes here, like we tried to watch as much as we could to be able to give a solid opinion about it. Like I myself, I always try and see everything twice before I put out an opinion. Like I might talk to people about stuff like behind the scenes about things, and then things may like move between it, but like I usually don't put an opinion out there until I've seen something at least twice,
Mhm.
because usually I watch it once and I everyone always has your initial opinion. But sometimes I simmer on things, and if it's a new movie, if I get to see something, going to the movies are kind of expensive. So that's
Yeah.
why I usually go to movies really early in the morning on either during the week or on the weekends, or I go on Tuesdays when they have like the $5 or $6 like Tuesday tickets or whatever, like Ticket Tuesdays or whatever they call them. And so like you can figure it out if you're able to make it work. For me, I just have a schedule where I'm off every single Tuesday. So now
Yeah.
seeing movies on a Tuesday is super simple.
That's so good
Um
though. I love when people have like abnormal schedules. Sometimes 9 to 5 isn't all it's cracked up to be. you
No,
know?
definitely not. And being able to, yeah, it also gives me beautiful things that, like, in my personal life, I'm able to pick up and drop off my kid to and from school, something that I wasn't able to do before, but like is now fun, getting in that like carpool line of just like, okay,
She's
now we
gonna
wait.
remember that forever.
Yeah. And so I was great, like as tough as it was raising a child, like especially in early when they're not talking during the pandemic, like I was home with her working working remotely from my house. So like I got more time with her than I would say most average people do or average parents do, because like you're usually commuting to and from work. So your time is like literally cut in half on that stuff.
Yep.
And I mean, God, we can move into like benefits and stuff. I mean, we've got banned this podcast. We can talk about that stuff there. But like, I mean, talk about like maternity leave or paternity leave. Like when I had 1 week off, and then I was had to be back at work. I was allowed one
Right.
week off.
I could talk about these topics for days, so
So maybe we'll move. We can. That's what ban this podcast is for. We'll move on to commentary. We'll we'll put a pin in that, and we'll work on that another day. We'll talk about that another day. But international features and like, but just international films, people of different origins, cultures, and stuff of you will interpret like storytelling differently, and that's why I love that Flow won
mhm.
animated feature, and I love that it was actually nominated for international feature.
Yep.
I like it was my number two pick for international because I'm Still Here was just really good. It
Yeah.
really was just a good movie. Fernando Torres is really good. It deserved that international win, but like if Flo would have walked away with best animated and best international, I really wouldn't have been mad. Like I would have just been like, the little cat did it. The little cat came out top.
Did you
And like,
see how when they accepted the award, they on the screen they had a picture of the cat like
yeah.
holding? That was
Mhm.
so cute.
All of that is amazing. Like I loved I mean, Flow is my most watched and probably my favorite movie from last year. Like there's just no question that I just, and like to be fair, like my probably my maybe my number two or number three movie is The Wild Robot. So like I just also responded to that movie very well as well. Like both of those movies are so good, but like there was just something always special about Flow that I was like, I love The Wild Robot, but Flow is so different
Yeah.
and like experimental. And then once I found out that it was made on like Blender, which is something that like me and Colin and Crowley here for like our own like animated project that we have, that we use, that Crowley has been developing like with our like Crowley is our art director and like graphic designer. Colin does a lot of input of that, and I just kind of give prompts because I can't draw. So I'm like, I have an idea. I think a person should look like this or school should look like that. Can you do that? Or I'll do like really primitive, like preschool looking, like pencil drawings. And I'll be like, here you go, man. Like, I want something like this, but
It's a
you,
light.
but you beautify it. And so like it's really fun, it's really funny, but it's also about like how different people work. Like I can do that with Crowley. I need to give better samples or examples to Colin. Like I can't just do something primitive like that. I need to be a little bit more detailed for him, and that's just how different people work. But now we're getting way off subject. Flow, loved it. Beautiful. The animated shorts we've talked about. Accessibility, just like documentary. We need to be able to see these more before 2 weeks before the films come out. Like you talked about, like whether it's like putting things together in like a little portal. I know there's such thing as the Oscar portal for like people who are in the like SAG, WGA, PGA, like all of the unions and like guilds and whatnot like that. There's an Oscar voting portal that they have access to. Like make a critic portal that we can like get access to, that to where we can watch things, because like I would happily do way more reviews and stuff of that if I had more access to it. And like the animated short was great. Like I picked Candies, but In the Shadow of Cypress was a really good interpretation of PTSD. I just responded way more to Magic Candies for that.
Yeah.
Cinematography was a huge shock.
Um, what did, oh, I voted for Dune.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
I thought
Dune.
he was gonna take it.
So if I'm being honest, I initially thought Nosferatu was going to win because Nosferatu is shot really well. I mean, Nosferatu is just a well-made movie, and if you like creepy gothic horror, go watch that movie. It's streaming right now on Peacock. It's available on VOD. Check out the extended cut if you get a chance. The extended cut is pretty cool. It's got, I forget how much added time or scenes to it, but like again, it's just like Roger Evers, just give me all the vampires, just give me all the horror, just give it to me all over. If I like, I just
Because
love
I
it.
loved it. That was kind of where my head was at. It was like a horror flick. So I was like, I don't, there
One of
wasn't
my favorite
much about
shots,
it.
one of my favorite shots that I was like, for this alone, it should be nominated,
Yeah.
is the shadow of the hand
Yeah.
going over the city.
Yeah.
Like that shit was creepy.
Super creepy. Super creepy. And I'm glad it wasn't just like a cookie cutter version of the original of him like walking up the stairs, you know?
Yeah,
He did like his own interpretation of it, which was I would have loved to have seen it win, but in my heart and my head, I didn't think it was going to.
yeah. That's ultimately why I changed it. I really thought Dune Part Two was going to win this. Again, it's one of those things like brutalist winning score in cinematography. I would say that me, excuse me, not seeing it a second time, didn't get a
Yeah.
second chance to like really reevaluate that that much. Um, is there anything else we really want to dive into here, or do you want to touch on here for the Oscars, for the best dressed, winners, losers, anything like that?
I don't think so. In general, I
Okay.
thought this was a really amazing award season, and I cannot wait to be much more involved this year because even though I've always loved movies and had always loved the award season, I never really got so involved in it like I did this year. So it's a new passion project.
Well, this is fun. And, you also told me about a couple well, so first off, next year we're gonna have we'll get Jody involved with this because we've talked about her already coming on for some other pods. But like I also want to talk to Sierra because she saw the movies over the weekend, like the best picture, like did the marathon of them.
She did
Like
one of the, I was like, girl, you are brave. She was in that movie theater for like 13 hours. I was like, you're crazy.
so
I would
I
have gone with her, but there are a lot that I had already seen. So,
yeah. I did the extended Lord of the Rings multiple times in theaters, seen all
wow.
three of them back to back. So
Wow.
that's like again like 13 to 15 hours in a
Yeah.
theater. Like the movie starting at like like 9 a.m. and us like leaving at like 1 a.m. or something. Like done that more than once.
Wild.
And so like I would just love to find out what it would be like because that's just three movies. Watching five movies like in a day like that in a theater, like does
Yeah.
your stomach just hurt from all the popcorn and just like
Yeah.
sitting there and stuff?
She
Or like
texted me at like 1:30 in the morning and was like, I'm just getting out. And I was like already sleeping. And I was like, this is crazy.
so like I want to talk about that because I love the idea of also promoting the theater experience in
Yeah.
general. I love theaters. I know you do too. Like, I mean, we're just down to watch movies as much as we can wherever we can. So I am about that life as well. But like, I saw Dogman twice this year already, and it's only March.
Really?
Yeah, like my daughter loved Dogman. We've started buying Dogman books now. So like,
Love that.
oh yeah, I mean, Dogman's great. It's fucking wild. That
I'm
movie is
thinking
so
of getting that like AMC Stubs pass where you can see like up to 3 or 4 movies per week. And
A
so,
list. Yeah,
yeah,
I think
that's
that's
what
like
Sarah has. So she goes to movies all the time. And so I'm thinking about it.
I have the one right below that.
Okay.
Just because I know I can't get to like three movies a week with my
Yeah.
daughter, and so like I know I can't do that. But we're a Premiere member, and I would say I love that just as much because that is like a yearly fee of like 15 or $20,
Yeah.
and I gotta say like my wife and I between like her seeing a movie, definitely me like definitely me seeing the movies. But like we saved like $400 like annually
Yeah,
with that.
absolutely. Movies are so expensive, and you get like free snacks here and there. You get to like cut some of the lines. Like when we
Yeah,
went
we
to go,
get
see it, we like got to cut lines, and I was like, I felt like a famous person at the
it.
movie theater.
So I would say if you don't do a list, because that's like 20 or $25 a month. So like
Yeah,
if you're not like really if you're not making like three movies, two to three
yeah,
movies like a week,
it's not worth it.
that's probably not that much. But if you go to a movie like maybe once a week or something, or like once a month or something, or like twice a month, I'd say
Mhm.
the premiere is probably pretty good because that is just like a flat annual fee. You
Yeah,
get the exact same rewards. You get to jump lines and stuff. You get online all of your like fees waived if you're ordering your tickets online and stuff. As yeah, it's great. Maybe I'll do a thing of that because I also use Fandango. Like I have Fandango at home for like a bunch of my digital movies, but I also use Fandango because Fandango also gives me rewards. So
yes,
like I use the AMC rewards usually for like the food in the theater, and then I use my Fandango rewards for money off my ticket.
yes,
So like you got to be economical about these
yeah.
things, and maybe we should do a video about that. That would be fun. But with all of that, Becky and I will be back next year and definitely later this year, dropping in probably a little bit more regularly about some good Oscar things that we've seen. So far, I haven't seen anything that's like really tipped the scales for me. Probably Presence. Like as of right now, if I'm going to say anything, that movie's probably going to get nominated for cinematography. But Steven Soderbergh also has like a thriller coming out in like a week now called Black Bag with like Kate Blanchett and
Oh, I don't think I've heard of that one.
oh yeah, that's his second movie this year because he's crazy.
I really want to see the monkey still. I still want to see
Oh
Heart.
yes,
Like, yeah.
I
Hmm.
need to see the monkey because that movie just looks wild.
Yeah.
Osgood Perkins, Anthony Perkins, son. You know, he originally acted in like Legally Blonde and
Yeah,
stuff. Like,
so silly. But he did long legs, right?
yeah, he directed Long Legs with Nick Cage and everything like that, which is great. And you know what? Maybe if we get a chance, maybe we'll do a trilogy of Osgood Perkins movies. We'll do Legally Blonde, Long Legs, and then The Monkey, and just call and call it the Oz trilogy. But we can get into that stuff later. Becky, thank you for joining Becky and
Of
I.
course.
We have gone on rant after rant here, but like we love the Oscars, and this was fun. It was crazy, it was wild, it was very indie, which was like the kind of heart and soul of like Hollywood in the box office last year because there was the WGA strike, there was the SAG strike, and
Yep.
those things lasted a while because AI is an issue for these people. And I agree, like I'm anti AI in our like art and creativity as much as possible. Um, but yeah, so like these really small independent films like Flow, Honora, The Substance, like took the world by storm because Wicked, huge production.
Yep.
Like that's $150+ million budget, maybe
Mhm.
even 200 million. Not knocking it, well spent, well made movie, looked great. But even The Wild Robot, that's an animated flick, had an $80 million budget. Inside Out 2 had like again like 100, almost 200
I
million
think
dollar budget.
I think it was 400.
Jesus. So like
Mhm.
insane, insane
Yep.
that like only these big budgeted animated flicks and like one or two like big productions were like done in time already. But like yeah, indie film came to save the Oscars this year. It
Yep.
was wonderful. It was great. I'm still shocked that Honora did as well as it did, but Honora's a solid flick.
Yeah.
So, with all of that, we want to thank you all for joining us. We hope you all stay safe. Please like and subscribe to this video and to this channel. I am Jimmy with the Triple C Collective, and I would like to thank you
E.
for joining me once again for part 3 of our Oscar special here. Becky and I will be back for some more horror takes later on this year, some more prestige movies. And we're definitely going to do a Scream series that I don't know what we're going to title it yet, whether it be Screaming Siblings or Siblings Screaming. but hopefully it'll be a nice little 4-pack of you, me, your sister, and my brother. And I just think that dynamic will be a lot of fun because my brother is 13 years younger than us, and I just think seeing that, and Jody's like a little older than us, not
He's a little
much.
older, so
So
close.
like I think having different time spans of like how we were introduced to it compared to like my brother of me being like, here, horror. You want to watch some horror? Come here, Sonny. Come here, step on down. And maybe I'll wear a top hat for it, and I can do a whole little shtick like that. It'll be funny. Um, but anyhow, thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe to our video and to our channel. And as always, we hope you stay safe. We will see you in the real world. And Becky, it has been a pleasure. See
Thanks.
ya. Whoa.
Nice.